Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's begin by updating you on the major stories in the news in our Abuja Wrap.
President Muhammadu Buhari has met with the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Bola Tinubu, in London. The meeting between the duo took place on Thursday evening as the Nigerian leader continued with his medical trip to the United Kingdom. Details of their discussions were, however, not disclosed. President Buhari had on July the 26th embarked on a trip to London, where he also attended the Global Education Summit on Financing Global Partnerships for Education. President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to the country after a 2-week trip to the United Kingdom. The president traveled to attend the Global Education Summit organized by the Global Partnership for Education before undergoing a scheduled medical checkup. Meanwhile, the president has also commiserated with the family of late lawyer Gani Fawemi over the death of their son, Mohammed. In a statement, the president said, his body may have been broken, but his spirit was virile, agile, and he kept the flag of the family flying, doing justice to the memory of his late father. While praying for the repose of the soul of the departed, President Buhari urged strength for all those who mourn him. And government officials will not be exempted from paying road tolls in a new open tolling policy approved by the Federal Executive Council. The Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, made the declaration on Wednesday while briefing State House correspondents at the end of the FEC meeting. According to him, Council equally proposed that bicycles, pedal cycles, tricycles, motorcycles, and 2- or 3-wheeled means of transport used mainly by disadvantaged members of the community will be entitled to a full 100% exemption.
We will adopt an open tolling policy as distinct from a closed tolling policy. The difference is that on the open tolling policy, which is what we were used to before, you pay toll at a barrier over a fixed or predetermined distance. So the start-off tolls that we have for financial modeling and investment decision-making, cars will pay 200 naira, SUVs and Jeeps will pay 300, private bus will pay 300, commercial buses will pay 150, luxury buses and trucks will pay 500.
And the federal government has said it would lift its ban on Twitter in a matter of days. Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed announced this on Wednesday after the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Mr. Mohammed disclosed that the status of the conversation with the microblogging site has reached an amicable stage with agreements reached in all areas except 3. Twitter has also reacted to the decision by the federal government to lift the ban on the use of its platform in Nigeria. A spokesperson for the microblogging site, who was quoted by Reuters, said, "We recently met with the Nigerian government to discuss why Twitter has been blocked and ways to resolve the matter. Our aim is to chart a path forward to the restoration of Twitter for everyone in Nigeria. We look forward to ongoing discussions with the Nigerian government and seeing the service restored very soon." And in health matters, Nigeria has recorded 790 cases of COVID-19 pandemic with 1 death, the highest in 6 months. This is according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC. In the agency's latest report on Thursday morning, the infections were recorded on Wednesday in 13 states. Lagos, the epicenter of the outbreak, took lead with 574 cases, followed by Rivers with 83 cases and Ondo with 38. And the federal government on Thursday took delivery of 177,600 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The single-shot J&J vaccine was acquired through the African Vaccine Acquisition Trust, AVAT, with support from Afreximbank. The vaccines are expected to be deployed in hard-to-reach areas to eliminate the need for travel for a second dose. And in the face of current national challenges, some former Nigerian leaders say the way out is for leaders in the country to shun tendencies capable of further dividing the country. The former leaders, who include former heads of state General Yakubu Gowon, Abdulsalami Abubakar, and former President Goodluck Jonathan, as well as former interim President Chief Ernest Shonekan, made the call at the maiden edition of the IBB Legacy Dialogue held in Abuja ahead of the 80th birthday of former military President General Ibrahim Babangida.
I made the right choice of patriots whom I believe with whom we could work together for the sake of this country. We have all worked for this country. and you have worked very well.
And lastly, the federal government is insisting on the application of the no work, no pay policy as resident doctors' strike continues nationwide. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanire, reiterated this assertion at the weekly ministerial briefing of the State House.
We're having a strike for the third time this year, and that is not good. We have appealed to them. We have been having long meetings with the young doctors. There has been no threat. Nobody threatened anything. It's just an appeal. All of us are doctors. All of us went through the same residency. We're saying this is not the time. Let's go on talking about it. Do not put people's lives at risk.
Welcome back. Justice delayed in this case was not justice denied. After 2 years in trial, the Abuja Environmental Protection Board, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, the Inspector General of Police, and Inspector Thomas Nzemekwe, also known as Yellow, are ordered by a federal high court in Abuja to, among other rulings, pay 6 women compensations between 2 and 4 million naira, being damages for beating, molesting, and dehumanizing these women. Our feature story takes us back to April of 2019, when it all started. It is victory at last for victims of the now famous 2019 Abuja club raids. 6 of the women who were harassed and abused during the raids by security agencies have won their case at a federal high court sitting in Abuja. In April of 2019, a series of raids on places of leisure in the nation's capital prompted protests across the FCT. The protesters claimed the arrests were targeted at women. Security agents from multiple agencies entered nightclubs and lounges in Abuja and arrested only the women in those places, accusing them of being commercial sex workers for wearing revealing clothing.
The protest today is to call the authorities, to call them to action and say, no, we are tired of having our citizens, young women, young girls, arrested without any form of justification, without any proof of any offense being committed. And regardless of what the crime or offense is, their rights were violated, people were raped, people were treated inhumanly, people were beaten up for no just cause, and there was no fair hearing. They set up kangaroo courts, moot courts, mobile courts to try these citizens, and most of them were forced to accept something they were not guilty of. They were forced to write a statement that was not even the truth, because at the point they were tired, so they had to confess things they did not even do.
We do not understand that any law has been broken. Women dancing and all of that, and then you went ahead, picked them up. What about the men? Where were the men? Were there only women in that place? Of course not. There were men there. Why didn't they pick the men as well with the women? They picked up the women, took them to police station, and then they started doing a lot of things with them. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It's unacceptable.
At the time, the protesters marched to the Federal Capital Territory Administration office, where they were met by the Acting Director Security Services in the office of the FCT Minister.
To be a woman is not a crime. To be a woman is not a crime. To be a woman is not a crime.
We don't want in any way to do anything deliberately to trample on somebody's right, except in the situation where the administration is making effort to sanitize the environment.
The crowd did not take kindly to his remarks.
Women, you have to listen.
Saying that someone is loyal, I'm a woman, so I can't wake up in the middle of the night and decide that I have groceries to buy. There are stores in Abuja that are open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Why? Because of working career women like me who don't have time every day to do their shopping. So I go out, let's say by 1 a.m. I want to pick up something from H-Medics, and you're telling me I can't do that? That's the height of being irresponsible. The police are meant to protect.
On the same day, another set of protesters made their way to the National Human Rights Commission, where they made their demands to the representatives from the Office of the Vice President and the Ministry of Women Affairs.
Right to liberty, fair hearing, and movement, and right to equality and non-discrimination. These rights are also further anchored in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We also look at it in Article 2 of the Convention of the Eliminations of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. There has been a recent ECOWAS court judgment that has also declared that the arbitrarily arrest, detention, and harassment of women by state agents under the guise of eradicating sex work constitute gender-based discriminatory treatment, contrary to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights.
Meanwhile, the acting secretary, Social Development Secretariat, Hajia Sefia Umar, at the time denied that the girls were assaulted by security personnel and justified the arrest of the women at the clubs and not the men.
Men are smarter than us in this way. A man will never wear a boxers and go out. That is the truth. If we go around to see what is happening in the city, you discover that men are properly dressed. So when a man is properly dressed and he's moving, what do you have in stock with him? A woman will leave her hair open and wear close to no cloth, just a pint and a brassiere, walking. You think she is mental, while the man is properly dressed. How could a responsible girl strip herself and a man in full regalia sitting down to look at her and laugh? We have to check our mentality as women.
This kind of raid where you go to molest innocent citizens who have freedom of movement, who are in social environment like nightclubs, must stop. And if you must do so, it has to be in strict accordance with human rights. So, you see, our work is to mainstream human rights into how government agencies operate as well. They have been carrying out their work without due adherence to human rights.
Over 60 women were arrested during these raids on places of leisure in 2019. 6 women filed a public interest suit seeking to enforce their fundamental human rights. Now, in 2021, 2 years after the suit was filed, Justice Evelyn Maha of the Federal High Court in Abuja, in her August 5, 2021 judgment, found that the rights of the applicants were violated by the security forces and that the Abuja Environmental Protection Board acted beyond its powers.
The judgment regarding the discriminatory arrest of people based on their gender, particularly the arrest of women in the streets and other places, becomes a reference point for protecting women's rights now and in the future. The judgment will serve as a wake-up call for law enforcement agents to desist from further inhuman raids and activities in such a way that violates the human rights of citizens, as such will be resisted and challenged in the courts across the land. Freedom of movement is guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and can only be restricted in exceptional circumstances clearly defined by law. The court's declaration that the actions of the AEPB was unlawful and had abrogated powers to itself and acted beyond its brief under its establishing act is poignant. So significantly, the court made an order for perpetual injunction against the AEPB and other respondents from further carrying out raids without an order of a court.
While the court has issued an injunction restraining the security agents from arresting women in a manner that discriminates on the basis of gender, they are to pay damages to the victims in the sums of 2 to 4 million naira. Civil society organizations in the nation's capital are calling the judgment a wake-up call for law enforcement agents to desist from activities that violate the human rights of citizens. My guest on the program is the Director of the Women and Children Department of the National Human Rights Commission, Mr. Harry Obe. He talks to us about paying compensation to victims of human rights violations, the level of awareness the people who man these agencies need to have to interface with the public, and how women in Abuja can keep themselves safe. Mr. Harry Obe, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, this judgment for these women who were assaulted by security personnel, I was there in 2019 when this happened and the protest was all over the FCT. And it's always mind-boggling to think about how a raid was done for whatever reason, and only the women were picked up at the place. Talk to us through that time in April of 2019 and how the National Human Rights Commission got to know about this case.
There was a raid on a nightclub, and the allegation was that some women were engaged in nude dances and things like that. And so when that raid was carried out, women were arrested. They say some of them were arrested even unclad. And then only the women were taken away by security personnel and then detained. There was a protest by a group of persons that were interested in protecting these women, protecting their dignity, and ensuring that there's freedom of association, freedom of movement, and the way we do things in Nigeria. So the civil society organization led a protest to the National Human Rights Commission. They were joined by the media and other people and lodged a complaint. And so based on that, the National Human Rights Commission, based on its mandate, had to actually carry out investigations and then engaged with the relevant stakeholders to ensure that the rights of these women were protected. And so this actually led to a lot of actions on the part of the National Human Rights Commission. The first thing what we did was to do some form of preliminary investigation by inviting the relevant parties that were named in the petition and people we think have the mandate to secure businesses in Abuja and ensure that at least we maintain some level of saneness in Abuja. They were invited to say what they know about it. Some people were specifically mentioned, okay, in the petition, so they were also invited. Then a group of civil society organizations also used another platform to hold the perpetrators accountable by going to the court. And it is the result of that action that we are celebrating today as the result or the judgment of the court.
Let's look at what the actual issue is here. Is there a way that women are supposed to dress in the FCT?
No, I'm not aware of any law that prescribes how women are supposed to be dressed. There is an expectation of decency, okay? But then that is subject to individual interpretation.
The people that are in charge of these agencies, the police, the AEPB, whatever security, do they know that Abuja is a mesh of different cultures and that you don't profile people based on how they look?
Yeah, they are supposed to know. And whoever is appointing persons to such offices should take this into consideration. How versatile are they? How inclusive are they in the way they reason and interpret laws or rules? So such consideration should actually go into appointments. And people should know that, look, irrespective of what you think as a person or your sense of morality, you cannot use your own sense of morality to judge the way another person should behave. The only thing that guides everyone is their rules and laws. And the laws are generic in nature. It protects everyone. If you subject laws to individual or your personal interpretation and you act based on it, you're always going to come out with accusations of violations of private rights.
In this particular matter now, the court has ruled in favor of the victims. Am I correct in saying that these victims were assaulted? Many of them were sexually molested?
The court
afterwards?
has so said, the court has held so. For the court to have awarded damages, it means the allegations have been proved beyond reasonable doubt before the court.
They were sexually molested after they were arrested?
There was that allegation. There was that allegation.
The perpetrators of that, how are they going to be brought to book?
Well, they need to fish that out for some criminal action to be taken against those people.
This compensation is between 2 to 4 million. Was that fair?
That is, I will be, you're asking me to comment on the decision of the court. I don't know how much evidence.
Is that commensurate to the amount of abuse that these women have suffered?
No, there's nothing that would be sufficient to assuage or to comprehensively pay for a violation of a right.
This is not the first time that, for instance, the police force has been asked to pay compensation for human rights violations. We usually don't hear that these payments have been made. Is that going to be the case here, or is it going to be different?
We hope that it will be different because of the level of awareness we have now.
Is there any way to compel these agencies to pay these compensations that the court has ordered them to?
Well, the court should have the powers to enforce its own judgment. And that's so the Sheriff and Civil Process Act actually prescribes how enforcement should be done. Of course, from our experiences in the past, we know that it's not been complied with most of the times. And that is because of some hiccups we have in our system. We have this culture of impunity. You remember the Apo killings, where the National Human Rights Commission said that the security operatives acted outside their powers and that they violated the rights of those people that were killed. Damages were awarded, and the government has paid those damages in full. So if we are to use that as a benchmark for what to expect with regard to this particular court judgment, one would say that the government will make the relevant agencies to comply.
So for every woman who's in the FCT right now, because a lot of us don't go outside at night, I don't walk anywhere at night in the FCT because I don't want, not because of the way I'm dressed, I just don't want anyone to profile me because I'm female, you know, and things like that. It's not a good way to live. You should be able to enjoy your life. You should be able to go out and buy whatever you need to buy, and you shouldn't live in fear. But for the women in the FCT right now who have probably been following this situation, that protest was massive. Every woman I know was outside that day. You know, it was very important to us women. What should we be doing going forward until these standards are put in place, until these sensitizations are done, until we're able to get it right with our security personnel? What should the women in the FCT be doing right now to keep themselves safe?
Yeah, I think the judgment should embolden every woman within the FCT to live their lives to the fullest, to be who they are, to join their hands with other people to ensure that we have a peaceful and enjoyable society. Do not feel intimidated or held back, you know, from expressing yourself genuinely. You should not be afraid. You should be able to tell someone that, look, some other people's rights were violated in the past. The courts have actually come up and said that that was wrong. And so I wouldn't want my right to be violated because I know my right better with this court judgment. And let them also know where to go to whenever we have cases of intimidation and negative profiling. They can go to the National Human Rights Commission. We have a lot of individuals, and this must be mentioned, in Nigeria that are willing to stand up for the protection of their neighbors or even people they don't know. So let them speak out. Speak out. Don't be held back by any fears. Speak out. And that is the only way you can be held.
Well, thank you very much for being with us on Dateline Abuja this week, and good luck with the work that you do.
Thank you very much, Kayla. It's a pleasure to be here.
Evil thrives when good men do nothing. To every person who took part in those protests and spoke up against the violation of the rights of women, thank you. This momentum must be sustained. Women and girls must feel safe to go outside whenever they want to, wearing whatever makes them comfortable within the confines of the law. It is not against the law to go to a nightclub. It is not against the law to walk on the streets wearing shorts, at least not in Abuja. The days when your rights could be taken away arbitrarily based on someone's subjective beliefs may not have totally ended, but with the right amount of pressure and some good trouble, we could end this culture. It can only work if, as a collective, we insist the right things are done. An injustice to one is an injustice to all. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.